Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time this cycle, we're getting ourselves a humble host power rankings. I'm your standard, ironically, your standard host for a lot of things, Better League Network, CMass, but I have our humble host here, Connor. Connor, how you feeling tonight, man?
Well, we'll come up with a better name for you than standard host. I'm feeling pretty good, man. It's good to do these power rankings again. You know, it's been a long time. I think the last time I did this was, the second to last season of last cycle, so it's really good to do this. I just want to say real quick, this is the hardest power rankings that I've ever put together in my life. I mean, there's so much parity in the league this year. So many users with records of like between 6-6 and 9-3 or something like that. That it got really difficult, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of controversy with this set. I think some people are gonna hate where they're ranked, but again, it's in a vacuum, and we'll get to it.
I know at least one person that'll hate where they're ranked, and Justin, God, Justin with your terrible jokes. Justin says humble host and fumble host. I don't get it. Because technically Connor's the one that said the fumble, but anyways. Well, this is the power rankings, and if you I just want to remind everyone, Connor hasn't said it yet for whatever reason, but I just want to remind everyone that this power rankings is in a vacuum. Okay, so it has nothing to do with what they've done in the past. Am I right? Is that's still a thing, right?
Oh, you're exactly right. That's never changing. Yeah, just to go down the guidelines real quick. As you said, it is in a vacuum. I do not care. Past rings, past cycles that are relevant to me, that are relevant to these power rankings. A couple other things I should say is I don't care about like forced wins or forced losses you've taken, and I don't care about like user changes of probably the most prevalent one being, or the most prevalent two I should say, being Ocho and slander. I don't like that. Doesn't really factor into my ranking. I'm treating like everything is the same in that regard, and then. Especially as we get into the top 10, because there are going to be some controversial placements. I'm just letting you know now. Just prepare yourselves. Remember that this isn't necessarily a ranking of like who I think is most likely to win the Super Bowl per se, but it is a ranking of like who's had the most impressive season so far. And if you are looking at who's going to win the Super Bowl again in a vacuum, you're going to hear me say that like 100 more times. Then yeah, you could factor that in. But I'm really excited to get going, CMass, and we can get started whenever you're ready.
Cool. I just had to get the audio because everyone was yelling at me. Like, Connor's too low! Connor's too low! Turn it up! So I had a setting wrong. But anyways, volume up. Okay. Oh God, Austin. All right. Okay. I need an official non-troll, preferably a person of Tyrell or Dan stature, to tell me that the audio is good for both myself and Connor.
Listen, I can do that shtick all over again if you all need me to. No. I don't mind.
Come on. Okay, Taint says it's good. I'm going to take his word for it. All right.
I mean...
Just go with it. Connor's too loud. I say a tiny bit higher in Connor, but it's good. Okay.
So we've gotten 3 different opinions on it. Okay, let's just keep it the way it seems.
That's too loud. All right, you know what? I will because Connor's going to do most of the talking. So I'll just go ahead and turn it up just a little bit more. All right. Connor, testing. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. We're still in a vacuum. That hasn't changed.
Man, he is like screaming in my ears, guys. That's not your fault. I just want to make sure that he's good. Connor's pants are still on. Oh yeah. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this, guys. Get serious. All right.
Yes. This is deadly serious. This power rankings.
Oh yeah. Number 32. All right. So I mean, if anybody's been paying any sort of attention this year, I think they all know that this team is going to be the Atlanta Falcons, with the quote-unquote Nick, who is 0-12 currently with the second to worst offense and the number 22 ranked defense. Connor, why do you have Nick last?
Well, I mean, how many versions can I give you, man? I mean, first off, only user yet to have a win. Only user yet to have 2 wins for that matter. I mean, you all saw the last power rankings I did. I'm not just automatically going to give a team that has yet to have a win 30 seconds. I think I famously did that with Nico last section, where I put someone over Nico despite the fact, I put someone with 0 wins over Nico despite the fact that Nico had a win and the other user didn't. But Nick truly deserves this number 32 spot. And, I'm not going to bully the Rhode Island people a ton, but we unfortunately do start with Nico's 0-12 Falcons. So, in this season with a ton of parity, probably the most the better league's ever seen, to be honest with you. No real truly dominant threats. No one who's going, undefeated per se. No one with fewer than 3 losses for that matter. I think going 0 is actually even worse because, everyone has a puncher's chance in a lot of these games. So for Nick to go 0 the season so far is, I think, especially bad this Madden. The last game that they kept within 2 possessions, within less than 17 points, was in week 6, and that was a 2-point win, or excuse me, a 2-point loss, obviously, against Slander. I'm pretty sure that's a forced win, but again, that doesn't matter. The main issue, of course, is, like I'll say for many of these bottom half users, passing efficiency. Matt Ryan averages over almost 3.5 interceptions per game, and the running game actually isn't terrible. Todd Gurley's actually doing a decent job, but Nick continues to shoot himself in the foot over and over with turnovers. They give up 40 points per game, as you've indicated. He has a pretty bad defense. And unfortunately, with his record, he still has Chase left. He still has Alex left. He still has Wozy left twice. So unless he can steal one from Wozy, which isn't completely inconceivable, but unless he can steal one from Wozy, yeah, he's probably going over the season.
But the real question everyone wants to know, is Nick real? Connor, your thoughts?
I have my doubts on that, but we'll see. We still haven't gotten the face picks yet, and we know how much this league loves face picks. So.
It's either like a really good troll job from the Rhode Island boys, or he's a burner. One of the two.
I'd almost just if he's a troll job at this point, I'd almost just give it to him at this point because they've done such a good job of establishing the lore. I'd almost give it to him.
Absolutely, and I gotta catch back up. But thank you, Ben, for subscribing. Morty, thank you for gifting a sub to, it's covered up for me, Totally Real Ninja. Totally real. And also, thank you for the follow for 187 Gaming TV. Appreciate it. But yeah, Falcons last. I don't think anybody really is going to argue that one. A couple people, Ben saying rise up. Love it. I think they're probably dead last in real life rankings too. So
they may very well be. I'm sorry about that.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with them. And they finally fired Dan Quinn. Anyways. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 31. This team thought he was going to sweep the division. Turning out he swept nothing, and that's going to be Mr. Mike, who's number 31, 2-11, 14th ranked offense, 20th ranked defense. And then FYI, these rankings are based on daddy leagues when I did it at this morning. So things might have changed after today, but those are rankings today. Connor, Mike.
Yeah, I'll also say real quick that I put these rankings together last night. So if I say a record or a statistic that's slightly incorrect, that's why. I mean, of course, we had the Red Zone stream just now, so things have changed slightly. But again, these rankings are as of last night. I do actually, and I promise I'm not saying this to be sarcastic. I do want to congratulate Mike because he used to be such a historically awful passer that frankly it boggled the mind, and he's just generically bad now. And that's actually a legitimate accomplishment. I think Mike has actually gotten a lot better at passing. You look at the data league stats, you look at Aaron Rodgers' stat line for the year, you wouldn't necessarily think that it represents a massive improvement, but I do legitimately think that you can make the argument that Mike is one of the most improved users in here, at least outside of the top 10. So good stuff on that for Mike. The 3 QB system he's running, the famous 3 QB system with Aaron Rodgers, Kaepernick, and Jordan Love, it's actually working, at least in terms of the running game, because Kaepernick and Love average a combined 8.5 yards per carry, but he runs them less than twice a game. So I would actually lean on that a bit more if I were Mike, get Kaepernick, get Love going with his QB powers, those read options, etc., because it does generally work, honestly. He had an exciting start to the season. He started off 2-2, and he had a 1-possession loss to Dan week 3. I don't know how much of that was Dan taking it easy on him, but regardless, he had a 1-possession loss, but unfortunately has been largely non-competitive since then. I think the last sort of big picture thing I'll say about Mike is he could be on the precipice of being one of those any given Sunday type users. I think he's getting there slowly, but if he continues to learn the game, if he continues to take Dan's advice, he's got the best support system around him as far as Madden goes. And if he cuts down on the turnovers further, I think he can get there. He's not there yet, but I do legitimately want to congratulate Mike on having improved quite a bit actually as a user, even though it doesn't necessarily reflect in the record.
Yeah, I mean, you got him ranked at 31, but you had nothing but nice things to say for the most part. I mean, complimenting on him his improvement.
You grade guys on a curve sometimes.
31 for somebody you're talking a lot of good things about. I don't know if that's just a compliment to the skill of the league or you just, I don't know. But you definitely complimented somebody a lot that is ranked number 31. Mike's trash, let's be honest. Let's go ahead and move on to number 30. Number 30, to be fair, he joined, mid-season. Somebody who's been in the league before, so he's just trying to get his feet wet. I think he wasn't here last cycle. He was here one before, if I remember correctly, at least what I've been told. And that's going to be the Baltimore Ravens with Mr. Sean, who's 2-10 with a pretty crappy offense, but a number 9 defense.
Yeah, shout outs to Sean. Welcome back, my man. Honestly, they have improved quite a bit with Sean at the helm in terms of turning blowout losses into close losses. But again, I don't take user changes into account with these rankings. They take the full season into account, and Lucky Chew put Sean in a really bad hole when it comes to these rankings. He's given up over 40 points 7 times and over 50 points 3 times, including, a 45-35 loss to the lost connection man himself, Ryan, week 6. That is really bad from the Ravens' perspective. They have not figured out defense. Lamar Jackson, unfortunately, and again, some of this is Lucky Chew dragging down the averages, but you have to keep that in mind. Lamar Jackson is one of the least efficient starting quarterbacks in the league. He's a 1-to-3 touchdown to interception ratio and about a 58% completion percentage. Not great. I mean, again, we'll get to plenty more users that have the same or worse passing stats, but I had to point that out as far as the Ravens go. I think what Sean's arrival has brought with the Ravens is defensive competence. When you look at the number of points they were giving up when Lucky Chew was at the helm versus when Sean's at the helm, it's a pretty drastic difference. It's around 2 touchdowns less per game compared to, again, when Lucky Chew was at the helm. But the offense is still languishing, and I think Sean will figure that out. Sean used to be an elite user. He's still getting used to this Madden. He'll figure it out. But I do think, right now at this moment, I think the Ravens are better than the 30th best team in the league. But again, you're taking the whole season into consideration, so he is ranked 30th because of that.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this Sean guy. Seems like a nice guy, but according to Ben, he does have more rings than Ocho, so that's always good.
That's facts, man. I mean, I have the same number of rings as Ocho, and so does Mike, for that matter.
Well, he says he has more rings, so I don't know if he's won one at some point, but
way back in Madden 17, he beat Phil. It was a great Super Bowl, actually.
There you go. Great Super Bowl. Taint is very happy. He finally got out of the 30s, he said.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Taint. Zeke Elliott deserved to get out of the 30s. Let's go ahead and move on from the 30s, actually, and go into the 20s here. Number 29, solid user where everybody was happy he got his team, but he's just not had a great season, and that's Mr. Nico. Nico had himself a 2-11 season so far, worst offense in the league, and a middle of the pack defense. Connor.
Yeah, so how do I couch this? The Dolphins have had maybe the hardest schedule that I can remember since I started doing these power rankings. I'll read them off. He's played Rhode Island, Austin. He's played both Alexes, Ben, Phil, Chase, Cam, Cloud, King, Cody, Lucky. And that's just games he's played, by the way. He still has to play Rhode Island, Austin again, Young Alex again, and Morty. So this, as far as schedules go, this is way up there in terms of among the hardest that I can remember. Now, I say that to say, how are you only scoring 18 points per game in this Madden specifically? The game holds your hand to 3 touchdowns a game, honestly. It has never been easier to score in the better league. And I get that he's playing, a ridiculously hard schedule. I'm not going to take that away from Nico whatsoever. That's honestly the only reason why he's not 31st, honestly. But again, only 18 points per game. That is way lower than anyone else. And Tua is going to have his career ruined by Nico. Just it is what it is. 46% completion percentage, which is the lowest, of any quarterback who started all year. 12 touchdowns, 37 interceptions. It's not great. You're going to hear me rattle off interception numbers quite a bit as we get through the bottom half of these power rankings. And he puts up 256 yards per game, and the second worst offense, which is Nick, I believe, puts up 333. So Nico has the worst offense by 77 yards. That's I don't need to tell you that's really bad, but Nico knows that already. But this is a really bad offense graded by Madden 21 standards. Again, Tua's having the rookie year from hell. They can't run the ball. No receivers averaging more than 50 yards per game. It's just there's really not a lot from the offensive side of the ball. And, as you can see on that beautiful graphic that CMass prepared for us, not a terrible defense, especially, again, given the ridiculous schedule that they've played, but has to figure out offense to become a competent user. That's just the name of the game here for Nico.
Yeah, I was just looking back. I was trying to figure out who he beat. It's so bad, but he beat Lucky. I don't know if that was his 4th win or I can't remember. And then he beat Jets, who we'll probably see here shortly. But you make great points about the fact he can be so bad in as far as offensively in an offensively based Madden. Like it is so offensively heavy that but somebody had to be 32. Let's be honest. Ben says shout out to Nico for his defensive breakout. Yeah, for sure. Taint says Ben's number 28, and Taint happens to be right. Connor's not a big fan.
Did you leak the rankings or?
Yeah, dang it, Taint, get out of there. All right, let's move on to number 28. Number 28 actually almost had himself an upset on the Red Zone channel, but was not able to close it out, and that's Mr. Dr. Gamble. Mr. Gamble with the 3-9 record, pretty not so great offense, but a number 5 defense. Connor, your thoughts on Dr. Gamble?
Yeah, no, he's a very solid defense. I'll give him full credit for that. He's only played 2 teams with losing records so far, so not a Dolphins schedule necessarily, but a pretty hard schedule. But he's only lost 1 game, now 2 losses, I should say, with the Cam loss. I'm gonna have to factor that in as I talk here, but he's now only had 2 losses overall across his 10 losses by less than 17. Again, he's getting blown out most of the time by these users. Again, you're going to hear me talk about a lack of passing efficiency plenty as we move forward. Tannehill has 12 touchdowns and 45 interceptions on the year. That's almost 4 per game. Can't shoot yourself in the foot with turnovers if you're just trying to grit your way to some of these wins. Just real quick, he has the 5th best defense. He gives up 388 yards per game. How crazy is it in this Madden that you can give up almost 400 yards per game and still have the 5th best defense? We got to do something about that.
I don't know how accurate. Because sometimes Daddy would say you're 5th, and then it turns out that you go to the team rankings, and it's actually you're 8th. So,
yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, which I probably should have done that to check, but
I mean, the fact is he still has a better defense than offense. I mean, he's got a fairly good defense.
Right.
Alex in the chat, little Alex says, "How does Gamble have a number 5 defense?" Don't know. Because Ben says because all the AFC South does is run the ball. Although Chap would probably have something to say about that because he certainly seems to pass the ball a lot more. But
he throws that thing all over the yard. We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I mean that's just a brief aside. I actually said in the season preview, the one that I did with you and Cody, that I thought that Gamble would have to lean on a power running game with Derrick Henry, establish the run, really use again that probably the best power running back in the league to full effect, and he's pretty much done the exact opposite. I get that a lot of that is because you go down early, you have to pass to get yourself out of a hole, but Derrick Henry has seen very few touches relative to almost any other starting halfback in the league, and that's just a waste of Derrick Henry. That's a waste of running is really good in this Madden, just like it was last Madden, and that's just a complete waste there. I guess that's the only real thing I've said about Gamble. I was impressed by what I saw. I only got to watch the second half of it, but him almost beating Cam was pretty impressive. Unfortunately, Gamble couldn't come away with the win there, but maybe signs of small improvement there. Of course, you watched the whole game, so you'd have to tell me, but that was impressive. But yeah, for now, I have the Titans at number 28.
Yeah, this is probably my first one that I could potentially say that he's better than this ranking, but his record kind of puts him there.
I could see that, yeah.
But because I remember I played him this year, and it was a harder game than I thought it would be based on his record. And I think Cam will now agree with me too. I know Justin agrees with me because he's lost to him. So he's somebody that I feel like is better than what his record says, and he plays pretty well. And I think it has a lot to do with that. Running offense is pretty good, and his defense is solid. So, when you can run the ball and play decent defense, you'll usually have a shot, but he's just hasn't done enough to win games, as you saw earlier today in the red zone. 21-7 lead in the first half and was able to go ahead and lose that lead. I think, as Justin said, just think yards are a great ranking. How good a defense. Okay, well, nothing important. All right, let's go ahead and move on to shocker, right? We're going to move on to number 27. Oh, God. I'm going to get a lot of flack on this one because I'm just now thinking about it.
I see what you did, yeah. Listen, y'all.
Yeah, listen. This is a format I've used for a couple power rankings now. I've yet to change a certain logo, so hopefully Better League Network doesn't get banned for it.
I need my steak dinner. Don't do this to me.
Washington football team is ranked number 27. Cook with a 3-10 record. Let's try to talk fast for this one. 23 ranked offense, 27th ranked defense. Take it easy on me, chat.
So As far as bottom 10 offenses go, he's actually like a lot more explosive than than actually every other offense that we've talked about so far. Haskins and Huntley has been a pretty good duo, although they do have a combined 44 interceptions. Again, a lot of interceptions being thrown by these bottom 10 users. But as far as pure explosiveness goes and pure ability to put points up, they are better in that regard than any of the teams we talked about previously. He beat Cloud by 19 in week 2. I still don't really know how that happened. That's as that result continues to age, it just gets more and more inexplicable. As Cook continues to lose and as Cloud continues to win, that's just I don't really get how that happened. But Cook, not the worst user in the world. He can definitely shock people. I would really, this is not the last time you're going to say this, I would really recommend he lean on the running game more, lean on Marlon Mack more. He averages almost 6 yards per carry, and he's been pretty consistent game to game. No one's really fully shut him down necessarily, but he averages less than 15 touches per game. Haskins and Huntley are doing the vast majority of the work in this offense, and that's not good because they are, again, explosive but inefficient. That's not going to win games, especially with these 10-minute quarters. These games take forever, Alex. I think that's all I have to say on Cook. He only lost me by one possession. He's definitely not the worst user as far as actual user talent goes. He used to be a very good one back in Madden 17. But as far as these current, I was about to say it, the current Washington football team goes, there we go. Number 27 in my rankings.
Yeah, and I think the first person's kind of disagree with you in the chat, and Hero Austin was surprised to see Cook down here. And I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, but it's his record, and Connor takes that into account a lot. I mean, he probably could be better, and he's somebody who's been better in leagues. But right now, since it's in a vacuum right now, I'll let you defend it. I'll let you defend it.
Without spoiling who it's about to be, I could see him jumping over the guy we're about to talk about, but no further. I think after that, once we get to the 25 spot, I don't think you can justify it, but I could see him jumping off one spot. But again, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get there. Let's move on to the 26th spot. We didn't get banned, so that's good. 26th spot, the other user who joined mid-cycle, and that's Mr. Dominic with the Jets, who has himself a 4-8 record, 25th ranked offense, 17th ranked defense. Connor, your thoughts on Dominic?
So despite Ocho having played the first 4 games of the season and going 3-1, Sam Darnold has 58 interceptions this season. He had 12 against Arizona, 8 against both Miami and New England. Again, Nico, not exactly a lockdown defender, but he had 8 in that game, as well as 7 against both Buffalo and the LA Chargers. This is Madden 20 Mike reincorporated, and actually we should check to see if Dominic's a burner. I'm not completely convinced he's not.
It might be Ocho.
He may. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Shit.
Funny aside, I was looking at this and editing it, and HHH was ranked at 4th. So, brought back some memories.
I fucked up there. Ocho 10 shots deep. Not only is his passing game that inefficient, but he averages 85 running yards per game, which is currently last in the league. Of course, Ocho, he blew out Phil, he blew out Justin, he blew out young Alex. That is what is keeping this current iteration of the Jets out of the bottom 5. But I'm just going to read the margin of defeat here for Dom in his game since he joined the league. 48, 34, 35, 39, 37, 20, congrats on that one, and 34. This might be the worst team in the league right now. I would actually love to see Dominic play Nick right now because I think that would actually be a good game. But again, this takes the whole season into account. I have to like Ocho's results still matter somewhat, so I have to keep that in mind. But right now, this is not the 26th best team. This is either 32nd or 31st. But the Jets ranked 26th because of Ocho.
Yeah, as Ben says that he scored 16.
No, his defense has not been good. Ben, oh my god.
Jeez, all right, well you can see it.
I'm about to get into arguments with the Twitch chat already. We're only at the 26th.
Yeah, feel free to do so. Morty, thank you, Morty. God bless you so much, donating $20, saying this content is delicious. Big thank you, to Connor for putting together his power rankings. I literally just typed. So.
And to CMass for putting the graphic together. I mean, it's a tag team we got going on here.
It's a recycled. I've used this. I'm never going to change it. I didn't even change the logo. But anyways, yeah, Dom. I think that's fair. I think he'd be much lower if not for the 4 wins, like you've mentioned before. I don't think I've watched a stream of him playing, so I don't have too much of an opinion on him. So
I can't say I have either, but the results speak for themselves, honestly.
They sure do. Congrats on the 20-point loss. Ben says, don't yell at him. That's what Connor does. You're lucky this isn't FIFA. So.
Oh, for real? Oh man, Beverly League FC coming back soon, by the way. So y'all can see some streams about that. I'm not gonna be monetized. We'll see.
All right, 25th. Let's go ahead and Morty guilt donating after he pulled the plug. All right, 25th ranked team. I feel like you're going to be talking about interceptions a lot on this one because it is the Philadelphia Eagles led by Jalen Hurts and Ryan, who's 4-9 with pretty balanced 20 ranked offense and 21st ranked defense. Connor.
Yeah, he is balanced, which I guess is more than you can say for some of these users. The long-awaited internet upgrade. We're still waiting on that. His 4 wins are against Cook, Lucky Chew, Taint, and Mike. So, like, not exactly the best 4 wins to hang your hat on there, but, 4-9, like, not the worst record in the world if you're, a user of Ryan's quality. I'll give him credit for close losses. Like, margin of defeat does matter. That's another thing I should have mentioned. Like, if you're losing by, 1 possession to Dan, for example, then, that's kind of a feather in your cap if you're one of these bottom 10 users. He kept it within 2 possessions against King, against Hero Austin, and against myself. So that's pretty impressive. You mentioned the interceptions. That was a perfect segue. Not only has Jalen Hurts thrown 57 interceptions this year, but he's gotten worse and worse as the season's gone on. His, 2 of his most efficient performances were actually in the first 2 weeks. He threw, I think, 1 and 2 interceptions respectively in those first 2 weeks, but it's gotten real bad since then, as you can tell, of course, from that 57 interception metric. His one true strength, despite the fact that, as you can see, of course, the 21st ranked defense, he does have a ball hawking secondary that's forced quite a few turnovers. He has actually, forced quite a few turnovers against even some pretty solid users, especially Darius Slay, but a bottom 5 run defense does hinder Ryan. Again, like many of these users, if he cut down on his turnover significantly, who knows? Although, that's a very generic thing to say because, if anyone had, no turnovers, then they'd be great. But that's not how Madden works.
No.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Ryan, number 25. Just get better, internet, man. I'm not going through that again.
Yeah, Ryan definitely with leading the league in interceptions and also disconnects. So congrats to Ryan on that. I think this is a fair spot. He could be lower, but for the fact that he still has 4 wins despite the amount of turnovers that he has, kind of a little positive that he's, not bad. Taint, Ben says Taint top 24. Middle third. Congratulations to Taint. We may be seeing his name soon. I don't exactly remember what spot he's in, but I'm sure it's almost right exactly now. 24th ranked. Taint with the Cowboys at 4-9 with the 16th ranked offense. I'm sure a lot to do with the running game you'll talk about here shortly, and the 26th ranked defense. Connor, your thoughts on dealing debts?
The king of the segue. CMass absolutely loved that. So Taint has both the intangibles and, of course, the team to, I think, pull off something close to what King's been pulling off throughout his entire Better League cycle. Just establish the run, just, pound Zeke down the opponent's throats. Again, I'm not going to get demonetized, but you can, leave that phrasing for what it is. But unlike King, Taint throws the ball way too much and he commits way too many turnovers. That's just the name of the game for Taint. Zeke averages 7 yards per carry, and the team averages 206 running yards per game, which is second in the league. Again, Taint is a legitimately very good runner. Who knows how much of that is Zeke? Who knows how much of that is Taint reading those holes? But Taint, again, doing a very good job. He's oh lord, he's shown flashes of excellence. He blew out Jesse. That looks more and more impressive as the season goes on. He kept it to within 1 possession against me, and he kept it to, I believe, within 10 points against Cloud. Very impressive stuff there. And I honestly think that if he made some minor adjustments to his game plan moving forward, just again run the ball more, it would be the main thing. I think he could be comfortably in second place in his division. I've seen much more upside from Taint than I've seen from Ryan and Cook so far, but their records are about the same because I don't think, again, Taint's been fully using the game plan he should be. But regardless, this is the highest that Taint's ever come in my power rankings. Congrats to him, and I hope to see him even higher next year. We all root for Taint, and I'm expecting great things as the cycle goes on.
He says, let me wake up my wife with the great news. I love that. My mom knows how good Taint is at finding the hole. Whoa, Alex. Whoa. Take it easy. Anyways, I think Taint's right where he needs to be. He's improved. Zeke, I think it has a lot to do with Zeke. Zeke has more than double the broken tackles that another person has. And for somebody to already have, I think it's like 2,400 yards, 2,300 yards by week 14, just rushing. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
100%, yeah, and I would hope that the bottom 10 of my power rankings isn't too controversial. I think it's the top half where you may yell at me a little bit.
100%.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Let's go ahead and get to it. Number 23. I mean, he probably would be higher if he didn't get married, but it's slander here at number 23 with a 5-7 record. Pretty damn good defense at 7 and 27th ranked offense currently with some Sims involved.
Imagine prioritizing getting married over the better league. Like, come on, man.
I wouldn't.
Facts. I wouldn't. Excuse me. I'm not going to talk too much about this team because, they are currently userless. They're going to take forced losses for the rest of the season. All I'm going to say is the final 3 games they play, which again are all going to be forced losses in their opponent's favor, are against you, CMass, against the Saints, and against the Lions. So look at those 3 forced wins again. Those 3 teams are going to take, as games that could potentially decide playoff hopes and playoff seeding, especially with you and Firm, because getting mighty tight over there in the North.
Oh, Tate says I'm behind a guy that's not even playing. Oh, man, that's awesome. Let's say Ben says Sims and M21 will get you a bad offense and a good D. I mean, that might be true, but he had a good defense before he left because I was always paying attention to him because he was in my division. But yeah, I mean, not going to spend too much time on him. Congratulations to him getting married. And we will see him next season. Move on to number 22, which is somebody who I think his player actually leads the league in interceptions. I'm sure you'll get into it, but that's Mr. Wosey with a 4-8 record with the 5th best offense and the 28th ranked defense. Connor.
Yeah, man. So Wosey, first off, he's very comfortably the most dangerous 4-win team in the league. I know that sounds like a couch compliment, and it might kind of be, but like he's better than Ryan and Taint. Essentially, that's what I'm telling you. Breaking news. He of course beat Dan and he beat Hero Austin back to back. A very impressive series of results there. Wow. I know, right? And he's only played 1 user with a losing record. Again, schedule matters. That is very impressive from Wosey's perspective. But despite his 2nd ranked passing offense in terms of just pure yards gained, his efficiency has been absolutely atrocious. He mentioned the interceptions. Tom Brady has thrown 47. It is real bad there. And he's also shown the tendency to just like completely fall apart. Tom Brady has, at least against better competition. So kind of looking like in real life Tom Brady right now. He gives up 45 points per game, which is currently last in the league, at least based on a couple hours ago. That may be different because of the red zone. But when I was preparing, it was last in the league. It's also the worst I can remember in a really long time. This Bucs defense is big trash. He actually he runs the ball pretty well. He has a duo of Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones going on, but like many of these users, he averages about a 2-to-1 pass to run ratio when really it should be more 1-to-1 given the efficiency that he has in the running game. Sure. So despite the fact that he's 4-8, he's about to get a forced win against the Vikings. He will have 2 games against Nick and 1 game against Fern. So decent chance he ends up 8-8. Very, very good one. He ends up at least 7-9. So he'd probably be higher on the season end power rankings, but for now he's number 22. Again, the most dangerous 4-win user in the league.
That's fair. Now, when I was going through this, I noticed that Wosey was top 10 in your power rankings last time. I think he's a better user than he's been playing. I feel like for some reason he's passing so much with Tom Brady. So it's not like he's trying to dev Tom Brady. So I'm not sure what that's all about. Maybe he's trying to dev his wide receivers he's got out there, but I feel like this is somebody that next season's definitely going to be somebody fighting for a potential wild card if he can get those interceptions under control.
He's good, but he's very inconsistent. I'm sure he would tell you that too.
Yeah.
I don't know if he brings like the focus game in and game out, but not the do I, so I shouldn't really be talking.
Yeah, me neither. Sometimes I get a little distracted with the content. Let's move on to number 21. 21, my division mate here, and that's Mr. Fern with a 6-7 record and 28th ranked offense, not great, and then the 25th ranked defense, also not great. Connor.
So I was expecting much better from Fern heading into the season. I kind of talked myself into the idea that Fern was not all team in Madden 20. Fern was actually like a very decent user. He was a very good linebacker user, at least in Madden 20, and I thought that he'd be like very competitive within your division. I know he technically is, but losing record and all. But other than his week 1 win against CMass, he's done like very little to show that he's like an actual competitive user in this league. Most of his wins have been against bottom 10 competition. And again, I've said it plenty of times, but he has an inefficient passing game. He's thrown 39 interceptions on the year, and it's holding back a decent rushing attack. And it is actually the reason he's losing some close games. You know, you look at the number of interceptions he's thrown in some of his one possession losses, you can draw a line there. He's peaked a bit recently. Like, he killed Chapterroll, he killed Mike. I mean, yeah, big deal, he killed Mike, but he still killed Mike, and then he lost in a close one to you. But it was very competitive, so that's good from his perspective. So the interesting thing from your division, and I think we'll get a bit more into your division at the end. We can just talk about that. But so he plays Wozy and Gamble, and then he gets a force win in his last 3 games. So like, he could end up 9-7. And if you end up losing to Cam CMass, then things get really interesting, because then you'd both be 9-7. You've split your 2 games, right?
Yeah, he won the first one, I won the second one.
Yes, yeah, it's on my sheet too. I don't know why I forgot that, but so that's gonna be really interesting. That CMass Cam game, everyone who's watching, we should announce that, because that's might end up being a really important one as far as playoff games go. But yeah, Fern 6-7, he's number 21 on my list currently.
I think the next tiebreaker besides head-to-head's division record for division, and I think mine's better because I've only lost to him, and I think he might have lost to Slander before he left, but I don't know off the top of my head. But Fern, I feel like will be better next season. But yeah, he had a rough season. A lot of people in the chat talking about the Browns last year and stuff like that, and I get it, but you know, for somebody, his best thing that he was good at was being a user linebacker, and it was probably the most nerfed thing in this Madden. So we got to take that into consideration. So he's probably had the biggest adjustment of anybody.
Yeah, that's tough, and he's also going from like a God Squad Browns team to this Lions roster, which is just not it at all. So like, I get it. You know, it's easy to kind of excuse this season for Fern, because that's a huge drop off in terms of defensive talent.
Well, now I'm looking, because Ben said that he thinks he got 2 force wins against Slander. I don't know if I agree with that. He beat him in week 9, and that might have been a force actually. And then so I don't know. I guess we'll have the same exact record with the same exact division record. So I'm not sure what's after that.
Yeah. So don't lose to Cam.
Don't lose to Cam. I don't worry about it. All right.
Gotcha.
If he plays he played against Gamble today, I probably won't lose to him.
Yeah, that's a good point actually.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to number 20. Number 20 is a team that we mentioned a couple times here, and that's Mr. Chap with the Houston Texans, 7-6 with a pretty darn good offense. But according to Daddy Leagues earlier today, he was the worst defense in the league.
So he gives up 450 yards per game, and he also is 30th both in I can't speak anymore, both in pass defense and rush defense. There are absolutely no bright spots in this Texans defense. Of course, you know, again, not the most talented defense in the world either from a Madden perspective, but you would expect better from Chapterroll, especially given the very run-heavy division he's in. His offense is like a very Jekyll and Hyde situation, where like it either really shows up or it really doesn't. He's put up 38 points 6 times so far this season. That's, you know, in almost half his games, but he also got completely locked down by Gamble, Fern, and Justin. Not exactly the best defenses in the world there, and he got completely locked down by all 3 of them at different points. He got blown out by Gamble, of course. I did not write down the exact score. I apologize for that, but I think it was like a 21-point game there. Barely beat Mike, but he has also at different points beaten myself, Cam, CMass, and Alex, Chiefs Alex. So again, Jekyll and Hyde is really how I would describe this Texans team. They pose a threat to make the playoffs potentially, especially in that division, although the Cam win today certainly doesn't help, as well as the Justin win, actually, now that I think about it. But even if they make it that far, I really don't see things ending well for them, especially with that defense. I don't see anything other than them getting like completely gashed in the playoffs once they make it. But I mean, shoot, if Chapterroll makes the playoffs, that's a huge improvement. So shout out to him.
Yeah, I mean, you said it very well. Jekyll and Hyde offense. I mean, when it's on, it's on. With Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller out there, there's so much speed, and Deshaun Watson rolling around. I mean, it's a good offense when it's on, but then when he's also one of the top interception throwers in the league, so when he's off, he's off. So then that's going to lead to around 500 record, which is what he's close to right now. And we'll see how he finishes out in that AFC South, because it is kind of a tight fight, and we'll see where it goes. We got the rest of the AFC South coming up here shortly, but this next one here is going to be our first NFC West team. I could be wrong, but it is the Seattle Seahawks with Lucky, who's not had such a lucky season so far. 18th ranked offense, number 4 ranked defense, Connor.
So this is a really big fall from grace from like the first half of the season. And it's tough because at one point I said Lucky was gonna make the Super Bowl, so I got my face there. Yeah. At one point, at one point the Seahawks were 5-1. They had wins against Rhode Island, Austin. They had a win against Slander, and they had a win against Cloud. They were looking really good. Again, they were looking like that potential Super Bowl contender that I was talking about. But since then, their offensive efficiency has cratered. Those first 5 games, they averaged only 2.5 interceptions per game, which is like, again, not bad by Madden standards. Since then, they've averaged 4.5. They're averaging 2 interceptions more per game. A lot of those are pick sixes, as you saw in that game against Young Alex that CMass and I commentated on the Better League Network. Whole lot of pick sixes in that regard. And now they're clinging on to playoff hopes by a thread. Again, they have a top 5 defense. I think part of the reason for that is right now he's throwing a lot of picks and giving his opponents a lot of short fields. So his opponents don't actually have to gain a ton of yardage in order to score on him right now, which I know is like not a good way to like frame Lucky's top 5 defense right now. But I think that's legitimately it right now. So that might be his issue currently. The good thing is he is about to play Dom, he's about to play Cook. So those are 2, get right games. He should win both of those. And then he has crucial divisional showdowns against King and Ben to end the season. And if he loses either of those, he's probably out. He has to win out. And I definitely don't see that happening based on his current form, but you never know. Lucky's definitely capable of beating both of them. We haven't seen it since the start of the season. So I'm not super hopeful about that.
Turnovers, man. Turnovers.
Yep, turnovers.
It can take a really good user to being a number 19th ranked user. So, I mean, if he just takes down the turnovers, he's in my opinion, he's one of the better users in the league. And as far as maybe like top 15, if he's not turning the ball over. So,
yeah, potentially.
All right, let's move on to probably the ranking I'm fairly upset about. Let's get to the Chicago Bears, 7-6 with the number 3 ranked offense, but goddamn, that defense is not great. Connor.
No, I mean, I feel like I've made this joke like 10 times, but again, Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith would have helped there. So Kyler Murray is by far the best quarterback we've talked about so far. Like, it's not even close. Like, Kyler Murray is a legit, I don't know if MVP candidate necessarily, but he's like one of the top 3-4 quarterbacks in this league for sure. So good stuff there. That makes the trade look good.
There's
honestly,
the good.
Yeah, that's the good. That gets your production on that rookie scale. It's a strong offense in all phases. I mentioned the passing game's very solid. Darius Geis has had a pretty strong season. Not the most explosive runner in the world, but he's been generally solid around 5.5 yards per carry. Again, the passing attack is one more efficient in the league. You can't stop shit on defense, can you, CMass?
No.
Yeah. And it hasn't just been against the good users either. Like you gave up 45 to Wozy, you gave up 44 to Gamble, 55 to Chapterall. I mean, my goodness. Now, to be fair, I also gave up like 40 something to Chapterall, so I shouldn't really be talking. Again, like you're gonna hear me give these criticisms, y'all. Like I know that I'm mediocre, so like keep that in mind. It's not like I'm Dan talking to these users. So it is what it is. I don't really know like really, and of course you can like talk about yourself more after my spiel if you want, but like I don't really know what to make of you heading into like a potential playoff run here because you're truly elite on offense, like genuinely elite. You had a statement win against Dan. I should mention that. That was a very solid win, and I think you mentioned on your stream that it was one of the few where you were truly locked in. So
yeah,
if you're locked in more, maybe a playoff contender in that regard. Again, bad losses to Wozy and Chapterall. I mentioned the Week 16 game against Cam that may end up determining playoff seeding, but like. What do you think, Cam, about your current like situation in the Better League right now?
I was too confident in my ability to play defense. It's. I mean, when I played all the stuff in the preseason and stuff like that, I've played much better defensively. Even when I took out those 2 players that are traded. But yeah, I mean, when I'm playing against people that aren't in Better League, it's a lot easier. But offense has been doing really well, and to be exact, Kyler Murray is the highest rated quarterback for the MVP race. At least he was this morning. Things might have changed.
Oh, is he? Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't check that, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. Just give him a little props, because if I'm trading so much for him, I want people to know he's doing well. Yeah, I mean, just can't stop anybody on defense. Offense is good. We can score with anybody. As long as the defense shows up somewhat, then we'll win.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Well, let's move on to some other people that aren't in the stream here. But yeah, I definitely should be higher than a few different people that are ahead of me. But we'll go ahead and move on.
Well, I mean, this next one didn't age particularly well from your Red Zone stream, but we'll talk about that.
Oh, Cam says Karan Higdon is coming. Bring him on.
Is he though?
Well,
We'll get there when we get there.
we'll get there when we get there. We'll see. Next one,
I,
Morty.
I have thoughts on Higdon that we'll get to, but
Yeah, we'll get to the
ahead.
Jaguars. Morty, who is 7-5, currently has one of the top 10 defense, but a number 21 offense, which is surprising for such an explosive offense. Connor, your thoughts?
Yeah, so that red zone stream's pretty awkward for this placement. He did just get blown the hell out by Justin.
Yeah.
Of course, that'll end up being a force win, but not great there. He's 0-4 in his division. He has 3 truly ugly losses within that, 3 like 21 plus point losses. So as far as like Morty's continued ability to compete in this division, that's not a great sign. The fact that he's getting, killed by all the other 3 users in the division, excuse me. He's very volatile in terms of his form. Again, he's blowing out good users sometimes. He blew Steele out. He blew Ronald Austin out. He beat young Alex by a field goal, I think, like within the first 4 weeks. But he's also, again, like getting killed by users within his division. So he's definitely volatile in terms of his form, but it actually averages out to a pretty balanced team. Passing offense, passing defense, rushing defense, all like solid but not great. So it's kind of weird. Amazing performances and trash performances will end up being average if you average them out. Crazy how that works. Ruggs has 23 touchdowns on the season, and no other wide receiver is more than 5. There is no other passing attack in this league that's so unbalanced in terms of who's getting the majority of the touches. Or I shouldn't say the touches, but the majority of the touchdowns. Excuse me. Of course, Ruggs is probably the best deep threat in the league, especially with how Morty uses him. But I would hope, if Morty ends up making the playoffs, which is kind of looking doubtful at this point, but if he doesn't make the playoffs, I would hope that he spreads it out a little bit more, at least in red zone situations, because, guys, better users than myself can game plan against that. So I would hope that Morty, changes things up a little bit moving forward. But again, with that loss to Austin, not looking great within that division, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that Morty, when he saw who was in his division, I think he knew that this first season was going to be a development year for his team. And I think he's treated it like such. Like in reality, I don't think Morty throws as many deep balls in a regular season he's trying to be fully locked in on. I think this season he's really just trying to develop his, Ruggs and other guys, Tyree Jackson especially. I think he's just trying to get those guys a little devved up to get his team a little bit better. But he still has the opportunity to make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to happen this season. But I think this is one of those guys that's playing to dev over winning right now. He'll take the wins when they come, but he's mostly probably looking to this first season to build his team. There is an interesting thought that Hero Austin's mentioned. He says, hear me out. The best thing Morty can do is trade Ruggs for a King's ransom because he thinks he focuses on getting him the ball too much. What do you think of that?
It's so hard to draft speed is the problem. Like, it's so hard to get just like that explosiveness, like that big play threat from like any other source other than just like having another team to begin with. So like, I get the idea of like staring down receivers too much. I definitely did that with OBJ back when I was the Giants in Madden 19. I don't think I'm doing that as much right now, but who knows? So like I definitely can understand it from that perspective, but I mean, unless you get a true King's ransom, as Hero Austin said, I don't know. I mean, Henry Ruggs is pretty irreplaceable, through the draft and through free agency, and that's something that guys have to uniquely account for, and like that can distort the defense, that can give you other opportunities if you have a guy like Ruggs on your team. So, I don't hate the take necessarily, but it would have to be a truly like Godfather offer for me to consider it if I'm Morty.
Fair enough. Let's move on to number 16. Number 16, a division mate here, and I think this is going to be probably the lowest ranking he's ever got. Alex is a 7-6 record, pretty close to having top 10 offense and defense. It might be now after the red zone, but what are your thoughts on Big Alex?
Real quick to Ryan. Sorry, hold on. Ryan, you were 25th, and this will also be archived if you watch that later. But yeah, you're 25th. Stop throwing picks. So as we get to Ryan, or as we get to Alex, excuse me, his only real like true inexcusable loss was to Chapterell way back in week 1. Of course, we remember how upset Alex was after that game. That was tough. But he's also like, other than sweeping Morty and other than his blowout win against Rhode Island Austin, which is kind of a random one, he hasn't really had any statement wins either. I think all his other wins have been against like below 500 users, or 500 or below, I should say technically. Mahomes has had a strong season on the whole. He's been generally efficient, very explosive, of course, with Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman, but he has shown the tendency to completely collapse in games. His first game against the Chargers, his game against young Alex, he just like combusted and threw a whole bunch of picks. So that is not a good sign moving forward for the playoffs. If that's the tendency from Mahomes, he really is going to have to beat both Dan and Chase to make it in the AFC at this point, unless like Chase completely collapses. Like if Chase just like handles his business, then Alex would have to beat both Dan and Chase to make the playoffs, and I don't necessarily see that happening. It's not inconceivable because Alex definitely has the inconceivable. He definitely has like the usual skill to make it, but I don't know. Based on current form, I don't see that happening. I will say if even in the division he's in, like even with Morty, with Phil, with Chase, if Alex doesn't make the playoffs with this Kansas City Chiefs roster season one, like that to me is one of the biggest stories of the season, because you have Hill, Hardman, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Mahomes. I mean, it's gonna be pretty bad, I think, if Alex doesn't make the playoffs. Because again, I don't think he's ever missed the playoffs in this league, and to miss it now with this team, like that's tough.
Yeah, I would like to, for an historian like Dan or somebody to go back and see like which users have the best playoff, not records, but as far as making the playoffs, like who's
making it every year,
who's made it 100% of the time, who's been lower than that and stuff like that. But yeah,
that would be cool. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Super disappointing season for Alex. I mean, for him he stole the Chiefs at number 12 in the lottery draft, and then to have him here at 16. I mean, he'll tell you he's probably the most disappointed user out there. So he has an opportunity to make playoffs still, so we'll see. Let's go ahead and move on to number 15. The humble host himself puts himself right smack dab close to the middle with the Browns 7-5. And for somebody who's 7-5 to have a 19th ranked offense and number 24 ranked defense, kind of interesting to see. But Connor, your thoughts on yourself?
Yeah, I've been winning the turnover battle in most of these games, and I think that's part of what that is. But yeah, I mean, I am still like. The biggest difference for me from this Madden compared to Madden's 19 and 20, where I was consistently going like 4 and 12, 5 and 11, is my passing efficiency has legitimately gotten better. I it is easier to pass in this game. I'm not trying to deny that, but I'm hitting the checkdowns. I'm not staring down one read as much anymore. Of course, when you saw me play Justin in that red zone stream, that was definitely me staring down one read the whole game. But but in general, I'm doing better on that. But I am still inconsistent in terms of my actual results. I blew out Jesse. I've beaten Cody, but I've lost to Cam. I've lost to Justin. I've lost to Chaparral. Actually, that whole division owns me as far as I can remember. I went 1-3 against that division. Ironically, no, really not good. But I've put myself in a decent position to make the playoffs, and that was ultimately that was my goal heading into the season. Just make the playoffs. I haven't made it since Madden 18. Like just being in the conversation is honestly enough for me, and I've put myself, I do have a legitimate shot, especially with my schedule moving forward. I play Hero Austin and Jesse, but I also have games against Sean and oh boy, who's the second guy? I apologize, I forget, but it's another guy that I should theoretically beat. So it's been a good season. It's honestly exceeded my expectations, especially being in the division with Cody and with Jesse. I've done better than I thought, and just got to finish strong, man. But this 15 spot feels about right. Of course, I'm sure guys are going to claim that I'm biased, putting myself ahead of Morty and Alex, but I'm willing to argue it. So let me know in the chat what you all think.
I feel like you've played better. I mean, Baker Mayfield's been fairly efficient, 20 touchdowns, 20 receptions. That other game is against Dom, by the way.
Okay, you're right, yeah. So if I lose that, I'm going to jump off a bridge. So
oh God, might need a new host. But anyways. Yeah, I think this is a fair spot for how you've played, right kind of right smack dab in the top half there. Not bad at all. But this next person, I definitely disagree with this spot. And that's going to be Justin at the 14th spot with a pretty solid defense with a 7-5 record and a pretty low offense except for his rushing offense. Connor, your thoughts?
So it's funny. I have in my notes written that he's a legitimate shot at finishing 7-9, but he just beat Morty, so maybe 8-8 there. He has Chaparral, Jesse, and Cam to end the season, so those are three games that he could conceivably lose. But also none of those guys are necessarily unbeatable either. He seems to be one of the few users in this Madden so far to have actually figured out run defense. As he will gladly let you know about in the chat. He gives up fewer than 100 yards per game in the rushing game, which I believe is first in the league. 95 is the exact number, excuse me. Against me specifically, he did a better job of shooting the gap against Nick Chubb and company than almost anyone else I can remember having played so far. Like he did a very good job of shutting down my run game. Of course, he blew out Cody 56-17. That is his most like famous win, and he just now blew out Morty, so I should include that as well, I guess. But back-to-back losses to Sean and Gamble, that's really tough.
Oof.
It may. I'm not going to say like his playoff chances are over because he's now 8-5. Like he can still very much make it, but if he doesn't make it, then he's gonna be ruining the day he lost those 2 games, man. Because that's a tough series of losses to take. But I do think Justin, like, don't sleep on Justin now. Like I get that. I get what you're saying about. Or do I mean, shut up. I'm not gonna stop you. Shut. With him having figured out run D the way he has, if he forces guys to be one-dimensional, in the playoffs, you never know. Justin's made it to the Super Bowl twice, y'all. Don't forget that. So I'm not saying he's going to make it this year. I really don't think it's going to happen. But, like, it's more shocking things have happened. That's all I'm going to say. But, yeah, Justin, number 14, in my opinion. So you would have put him, what, lower in this power ranking?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And I'll give you credit because I remember when I played him, he did do a pretty good job as far as stopping the run. I mean, I don't have the best running back in the world, but his defense, I felt like it was not third ranked. And I feel like if you shut Jonathan Taylor down, which easier said than done, but if you slow him down to where he doesn't get the big chunk yards, then it's usually an easy win for Justin. Or if you just get an early lead on him. But I think that the reason that his defense is ranked so well, his rush defense is ranked so well, besides the fact that he can, hit those gaps, I feel like it's because a lot of times he takes so much time of possession away from the other team, and he is usually scoring on his drives for the most part, that people are falling behind, don't have enough time, so they probably feel rushed and they feel they need to pass the ball. So I feel like that could potentially lead to that. But Justin also misspelling in the chat per usual.
Impusol, yeah, good stuff, Justin.
Yeah, I just this is one of the ones that this isn't the one that I think is the worst. Like this one isn't the one that I think is the highest. The most overrated. Sorry, but definitely one that I believe is overrated. Which little Alex agrees that Justin over Morty and Big Alex. Although I feel like he's probably, I mean, especially over Morty at this point.
I'll argue that he deserves it, though. Like, if you look at the totality, again, in a vacuum, like, if you look at the totality of his accomplishments, in a vacuum, thank you, CMass, I would argue he deserves it. But, like, you can bicker with a lot of these rankings. It's just, it's the power rankings. There are always going to be, like, stuff that you can disagree with.
Move on, number 13, the British gentleman, Mr. Phil, with the Broncos, fairly balanced, 12 offense, 12 defense. Your thoughts?
He has been like the opposite of Morty so far. He's owned his division. He's swept Alex's Chiefs. He's killed the Chargers. He's killed the Raiders. He's currently 4-0 in division, and all of those wins were pretty decisive. That's great from Phil. But he has only one possession losses to Dan and Jesse. Those are also pretty impressive results, honestly, from Phil's perspective, given especially how good Jesse's looked this season. But he has gotten blown out by Rhode Island Austin and blown out by Steele, and that gives you pause in terms of like looking at Phil as a truly elite like Super Bowl contender this year potentially. He's like Drew Lock has generally found his form as the season's gone on. He's generally gotten better. I say generally because he just threw 7 interceptions against Steele this current week, so that's not great. But like if you take that as an outlier, like other than that, Lock has definitely gotten better and better as this season's gone on. Like despite that, I am a little surprised we haven't seen him lean on like Phillip Lindsay on the run game because he has been very effective. He has over 2 passes for every 1 rush, and unlike those bottom 10 teams that have to throw it in order to come back, Denver's not been in that position, so that's just like that's Phil's, I guess, chosen scheme there. Despite Lindsay averaging about 6.5 yards per carry, and when you look at a couple of his losses, Drew Lock threw 4 picks in a 5-point loss to Dan, and he threw 6 picks in a 3-point loss to Jesse. So, like, you go a little more run heavy in both of those games, and maybe those play out differently. You cut away 1 or 2 of those turnovers. The Broncos could very easily be 10-3 right now, potentially, is what I'm trying to say. And just keep that in mind. Keep those high interception performances in mind because Phil's about to play young Alex, Chase, and Morty to end the season back to back to back. So, if things go south for him, like we could see Drew Lock struggle here to end the season potentially. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and of course Phil has shown that he's like very solid within his division at least. But just keep that little kernel there in mind when you watch these last 3 games that the Broncos play.
Here's my thought on Phil. If I was in the AFC, Phil, as far as the teams that are on the bubble or are currently in the wild card, would probably be one of the last people I'd want to play.
You're 100% right. I completely agree with you. Yeah.
You know, this part's not in the vacuum, but just, you know, his history as far as his success in the playoffs is also his, you know, he's good on both sides. I mean, he sometimes turns the ball over too much, but his defense is solid, his offense is solid. And I feel like when players, all the good users, when playoff time comes and devs are no longer a thing, it's pound the ball. And that's something that I think he can do. And so if I was in the AFC, this is one of the users that I would not want to face.
I 100% agree.
Would be cheering against him.
Yeah, no, he won't get like overwhelmed by the bright lights. He's been here plenty of times before. He's won multiple rings. Yeah, I would not want to see Phil either. And also, like, congrats to Phil, because for the entirety of Madden 20, he was winning like 3-4 games a season. So
yeah.
it's good to see him back on top, because you know, the league missed a cocky Phil. So it's good to see him here.
All right, this next one I think is entirely too high. And he's in the chat right now. I'm about to play him here soon, so I might be chewing my words or biting my tongue, but I think this is too high for Cam. Cam with an 8-4 record. Now, he does have a really, apparently, good defense, but a 22nd ranked offense. Connor, your thoughts on Mr. Cameroon at 12?
So this, Justin, just shut up, dude. So this is what I've been asking for from Cam for multiple cycles now. The type of approach he's taking to this cycle to Madden 21 so far is exactly what I'm asking for. And maybe I overrated him because of it. You know, you could argue that, but like, I'm just happy to see what Cam's doing, because I've been talking about how solid he could be as a user if he just cut down on turnovers, if he embraced like a West Coast passing approach, and if he went run heavy. And in this season, he's done just that. You know, he's relied on Higdon. He's done a very good job from that perspective. His passing efficiency with Gardner Minshew, like, again, not the most explosive passer in the league. You know, his stats don't compare to, you know, your Kyler Murray's or your Jameis Winston's necessarily, but he's not losing the game by throwing the ball. And he used to do that back in past cycles. So I'm really excited to see that from the Jaguars. I think that's actually a good sign moving forward if we can keep that going. This is going to sound like such like salt from my perspective, given what Higdon just did to me, but I am a little worried about his ability to translate the rushing attack into the playoffs, because when you look at his game logs, when you look at Higdon's like game by game performances, he lit the world on fire in his first 5 games, but since then he's only gained more than 60 yards in 2 of his last 7 games. So like, he's gotten pretty shut down again in 5 of his last 7 games. So like, that isn't great as far as like form goes. His actual start to the season was like pretty unimpressive in terms of results, but he beat, you know, myself, Jesse, and Chapterroll back to back. And he may very well be on a 7-game winning streak heading into your game, CMass. So he'll be riding very high heading into your game. So that is something to consider. He also is is it the number 2 defense? Yeah, number 2 defense, which is pretty crazy given that the Jaguars were pretty crazy. Yeah, given that the Jags were seen as a rebuilding project heading into the season by a lot of users, including myself. So he's scheming well. I would not want to see him in the playoffs if we were both to make it, for sure, especially with his, you know, pretty dominant rushing attack. But in my mind, he's the 12th best user, and I can definitely see what you're arguing, but in my mind, he's earned it.
Oh, did put out a tweet, I think maybe a couple days ago, showing the easiest schedules and the toughest schedules. And Jags was the easiest schedule in the league. The winning percentage, like 40%. It was bad. Now you can't control who you play, so he's winning games. He's 8-4, obviously, so it's a pretty good record. But I just from what I've watched, and then almost blowing it against Gamble today, kind of made it a little more into my side. But 12. I would definitely put Phil over him in a battle-tested and AFC West.
Yeah, so this is where the in the vacuum thing comes in, because like, if you're asking me who I think is more likely to win the Super Bowl, Phil or Cam, I'm saying Phil 100 times out of 100, right? But I do like, you're right, his schedule's been easy, but like, again, that win against Jesse, that win against Chap, that win against me, I don't want to hype myself up, but I am number 15. Wow. That's not a joke in terms of like a 3-game winning streak. I wouldn't hate it if you put Phil over him necessarily, but like, I think Cam's earned a spot, honestly. This is not just to give you all a peek into the curtain. I told CMass that there is a placement in these power rankings that I think I messed up on as I did more research. We have not gotten there yet. This is not that.
Not that one.
I would defend this placement.
No, and we'll get to Jesse, but he might be somebody that I think is too overrated too. But let's go ahead and move to number 11. Move on from Cam, and this one's going to go to Rhode Island Austin, and 8-5 record with I think one of the few people that have top 10 on both sides. Number 4 offense, number 8 defense. Connor.
Dude, I have absolutely no clue what to make of Austin this year. I mean, Cam Newton has thrown 50 interceptions this season, and he's like for a user of Austin's quality, that's like obscene. That's like unheard of, honestly. And he's completely collapsed in multiple games. He collapsed against the Raiders, against the Chiefs, against the Rams, excuse me. He just like completely fell off a cliff and threw, I think, like 7+ interceptions in all those games. So like when he loses bad. He lost by 40 to Morty. He lost by 38 to Alex. He lost by 21, and he just gave up 76 points to King. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you get? I know King, runs it up whenever he can, but like 76 points is just, I think it's the record. I'm pretty sure. Dan, if you're in here, let me know because you know better than anyone, but I'm pretty sure that's the better league record for most points scored in a game. But he's also destroyed Chase. He's destroyed young Alex. He's destroyed Phil. So like, he's so volatile when he plays like good competition. Like, I don't know, he could very easily make the Super Bowl and blow everyone out on the way, or he could get killed in the first round. Like, I wouldn't know, there's no way to indicate like one way or another there. He has not lost to a bottom tier user yet. But again, like when he plays a contender, it's really anyone's guess what'll happen. And one thing I'll say, like divisional preview, much like with you and Fern CMass, is that I feel very confident based on how the schedules are set up currently that week 16 versus Buffalo versus young Alex's Buffalo Bills, I think that's going to decide the AFC East. I have no clue what to expect in that game. So that will be a game that will probably feature on the Better League Network because that will have massive playoff implications, I think, for both users.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's going to be a division. There's going to be so many games in week 16 and 17 that are going to be, division deciding, wild card deciding. So it's going to be tough to do them all, but for sure, this is one that's probably the user that's the most unpredictable.
Oh yeah. It's not even close in my opinion. As far as like top half users go, he's just been like all over the place.
It's another user I probably wouldn't want to play.
For sure.
Yeah. But let's go ahead and move on from the Patriots. We're going into the top 10. Top 10 users.
No, young Alex, he blew you out. Let's be very clear. He blew you out. You were toast.
I mean, Alex, it's about the final score. It's not about what the score. Ask the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. Man. That's not about the lead that you had or how close it was. It's about the final score. 10th team, the last team to make the top 10. That's going to be Chase, the 8-4 record. 26 ranked offense was a little surprising to me when I saw it in the 14th ranked defense. Connor, your thoughts?
Yeah, like those numbers don't look great just like on their face, but I think we need to go deeper into like his passing efficiency, etc. He's done a pretty solid job. Talk about a team that like lost their momentum completely after their bye week specifically, because at week 10, heading into the week 10 bye week, I would have had them as my number 1 team in the league. Like they were 8-1 at that point, 7-1 or 8-1, I can't remember. I think 8-1. But I would have had them as my number 1 team in the league. They had done enough to prove it. But since then, 3 straight losses to Phil, young Alex, and Rhode Island Austin. And none of those are bad losses, just like again on their face. But their playoff hopes are kind of in jeopardy right now, with that super tight division he's in. You would have thought of LA as the potential 1 seed, but now, it's going to be kind of a struggle even getting into the playoffs here. His passing efficiency, much like many users, has had a direct correlation with the end result of the game. In wins, Justin Herbert averages 1.75 interceptions per game, and then in losses, he averages 4.25 interceptions. So, when Herbert falls off a cliff, when he throws interceptions, Chase tends to lose. Again, I know I'm breaking news. When you commit more turnovers, you're probably going to lose the game. I know, not breaking news there, but yeah, Herbert's, he's hot and cold in that situation. So, I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to say. He has a very balanced passing attack. His top 4 receivers all have between 39 and 43 receptions on the year. So you really don't know where he's going with the ball. Unlike say Morty with Henry Ruggs, for example, he's very unpredictable in that regard. And he has games against Morty, Phil, and Alex to end the year. So despite Morty's loss to Justin, everyone still has an outside chance, at least in that division. I'll be very interested to see what LA does. I know right now Chase does not have the most confidence in himself in the world, but right now he finds himself still in first place in the division, despite, again, his 3-game losing streak. So that will be really exciting to see what happens in that division.
A couple people not necessarily agreeing with this spot. I think I agree with you with the fact that in the first half of the year, he definitely would have been number 1 on a lot of people's lists. And these last 3 games are going to really kind of define where he's at as a user, because they're all divisional games against, what we said at the beginning of the year, it was the top division.
Yes.
Connor not necessarily agrees with that. We'll go to that later, but I feel like Chase could definitely be higher. But let's go ahead and move on to number 9. Number 9 might be a little high for this guy, but he's a pretty good user, and that's King. King with the LA Rams, 8-5, a number 7 ranked Cam Akers offense, and a 29th ranked defense. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so like every season, I mean, not every season, but like, within a cycle, he'll go between what he's doing currently, which is absolutely lethal rushing attack supplanted by, a pretty efficient passing game, and then just like shooting himself in the foot over and over in the passing game, just throwing dumb picks. And right now he's doing the former. Right now his like passing game is actually decently efficient in terms of just not turning the ball over, which again, when you got Cam Akers, when you're as good of a runner as King, that's all you need. The only person who's been able to stop Cam Akers consistently is Ben so far, is Ben's 49ers. He held him to around 4 yards per carry in both of their games. So if y'all are looking to someone to take advice from, probably slide into Ben's DMs, if you have to play King. His losses were to Ben twice. He got swept by Ben. He lost to young Alex. He lost to Cloud. He lost to Hero Austin. So none of those losses are bad. Those are all the top 10 users, in my opinion. The good thing from his perspective is, he gets Dom and he gets Lucky back to back. So he should, at least on paper, be able to handle both of those. And then he has a week 17 showdown with Cloud. May end up deciding the division. We'll have to see, how Cloud and how Ben do moving forward, because that's another division actually that's gonna be really tight moving forward. But I like what I'm seeing from King, especially given how conservative people tend to get in the playoffs. I think I don't think you would want to see King in the playoffs. I think that's another user that people probably want to avoid, even though he doesn't generally have like the most accomplishments in the world in terms of like his overall better league career, but he could be very dangerous here moving forward, I think.
Yeah. Although if you ask me, hey, what kind of offense, or sorry, what type of user do you want to play in the playoffs? It's going to be a bad defense and what's the word I'm looking for? One-dimensional offense.
Yeah.
It's probably what I'd ask for. But yeah, I mean, that one-dimensional offense is good. Very, very good. Cam Akers is MVP candidate. He's number 2 in the MVP ranking as of this morning, but number 1 in NFC Player of the Year, which is ironic because number 1 is Ezekiel Elliott for MVP. Not sure how that works out, but little Alex confused that King is over Chase.
Little Alex just spends his whole life confused, so I get it.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Let's go ahead and move to number 8. Number 8, is somebody who's been in the chat for pretty much the majority of this time, and that is Benjamin with the San Francisco 49ers. Number 2 offense, not so great defense with 8-5 record. Your thoughts on Ben?
So y'all know how I said that I put someone too high in my rankings?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this might be it. Because Ben swept King, and I think I let that in my mind overshadow the fact that he doesn't have a single other quality win. When you look at his schedule, he really has not beaten another like top tier user necessarily so far. He still has the opportunity to moving forward, but he has not yet. One of the most explosive air attacks there is in the league. Carson Wentz has been dealing generally, even though he's thrown a decent number of interceptions, plus 7 yards per carry from his 2 leading halfbacks, Mostert, and I forget the name of the other guy. I'm sure
Tevin
will educate me. Thank you. CMass, I can always rely on you to like get player names right.
Got you, bro.
So I appreciate that.
Indiana Hoosier. Second.
There you go.
Pick.
Oh man, I just got dunked on, y'all. That was bad. I might have to leave the stream. Carson Wentz has been very strong in recent games, although he did throw 6 interceptions versus the Giants and against New England, which does concern me. Those are a couple of like the only like true elite users that Ben has played, and if Carson Wentz is going to throw them many interceptions moving forward against elite competition, that's not a great sign. But again, strong recent performance. He has the opportunity to prove himself with a couple divisional games here to end the season, and again, he's as much in the hunt for that divisional berth as anyone else. So Ben, number 8 in my rankings, maybe a bit overrated, which I can very easily see. I probably should have put Chase and King over him, I think, if I were to do this all over again. But for now, 49ers at 8th at 8-5.
That's fair. And I guess when I first put this together, this one at 8 didn't really jump out at me because it's like, okay, because I'm not necessarily always thinking in a vacuum as you are.
Yes.
So
I was thinking in a vacuum. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it really didn't catch me off guard. But Ben seems to be happy with it. He says, "Oh, cool," and nobody else has said anything about it. So I guess they're not too upset. So let's go ahead and move on to number 7.
All right.
Number 7, maybe a little high. But that's going to be the craziest user, Mr. Cody Youngson, number 9 offense, number 18 defense with a 9-4 record. Your thoughts on your divisional mate?
So my guess, with looking at all of the contenders' schedules, my guess is that when this is all said and done, Cody will probably be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And in fact, if he beats Jesse, I think that's next week, I'd almost guarantee that he's the number 1 seed in the AFC. The big Achilles heel for Cincinnati has been the run defense. Cody's been very vocal about his inability to stop the run. He gives up 167 rushing yards per game, which is last in the league, dead last. And, you mentioned it, CMass. We know that offenses tend to get more conservative in the playoffs. People like to pound the rock in the playoffs, when the pressure's on. So if he goes up against like Justin or Cam or like some of these users who have like really figured out their running games, that could be like a legitimate problem. I mean, we've already seen Justin blow him out once. I'm not saying it'll be that bad again. Obviously, that would
Probably
be a
not.
stupid take, but yeah, no. But, Jonathan Taylor against that run defense, that is a true mismatch as far as just like looking at different units goes. Even just now, Taint's Ezekiel Elliott went for 292 yards against him. Cody won that game pretty comfortably, but like he can't stop the run, man. Like he just can't. So that's a very legitimate concern, I think, for Cody moving forward. Despite the fact that if I had to bet on it, I think it probably will be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I was definitely expecting Burrow to have a bit more of an efficient season than he's had. I'm sure Cody was too, but he's still likely to get that Pro Bowl dev bump. I'm pretty sure he's the second highest quarterback in the AFC right now in terms of passing yards. So if he keeps that up, I think he'll get that, dev bump. So that's really all Cody's looking for, just dev Burrow moving forward. So I think he'll be happy in that regard. But, I was expecting a bit better passing efficiency, as I said before, but not horrible, of course, from Cody's perspective. But, that offense can compete with anyone. He's just got to shore up the run defense before the playoffs hit, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he'll tell you himself that he's made a lot of bad choices with Burrow, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he's really focusing and trying to get him to X Factor. So, I can understand that for sure. Yeah, honestly, you say he can't stop the run, but there's not a lot of people who really can. There's a select few. It is hard to stop the run, stop offense in general. There is a user coming up that I really like their defense. I don't know if he's next. He's not next. But let's go ahead and talk about this user who, if it was in a vacuum, this might be a little high.
Yep.
If it was in a vacuum, this might be a little high, but I think he might have gotten a little bump there. Number 1 offense, though, 10-3 Dan at the 23rd ranked defense. Your thoughts on Mr. Dan this season?
I know Dan's going to use this as motivation. I know he's writing this down in his notebook. I welcome it. His back-to-back losses to you, CMass, as well as Wozy, reflects pretty poorly on him. The majority of his wins are against teams with losing records. So, like, he has the best passing attack in the league, I think. Again, like the most efficient, just the most explosive. He remains, in my opinion, the best passer in the league. But in a vacuum, I'll say it plenty more times, compared to these top 5 teams that I'm about to go on, he's been generally very untested. He really has not, again, played that hard of a schedule. Of course, CMass, you're like the biggest threat there is, so I don't deny that. But he's just generally pretty untested compared to other top 10 teams. Yeah, you're above Dan. Yeah, get excited. Jameis threw 4 interceptions against the Chargers and 5 against your Chicago Bears. So just when they go against playoff defenses, just keep that in mind. Jameis has been dealing against lesser teams, like lesser defenses per se, but against these solid defenses, I just called your defense solid.
That's why I laughed when you said
I realized what I was doing there. Yeah,
defense. I was like,
against a solid user, I suppose, though,
yeah, that's
yourself. But yeah, just keep that in mind when they go against playoff defenses. Not the most efficient performances in the world there. And based on the current evidence we have, he's not my NFC favorite. We'll get to my NFC favorite later. He's definitely not it right now. Now, I'm sure he's writing this down. I'm sure he'll probably blow people the hell out in the playoffs and prove me wrong. But right now, in a vacuum, the 6th best team, in my opinion.
Yeah. Might be a little, like I said, might be a little high. But I'm a little biased because I beat him myself. But
for sure.
But in all honesty, and I said it when I had played him, that I feel like I'm a bad matchup for him because there's certain users that I play better against, and then I was also locked in to play him because I needed to win that game to basically keep my playoff hopes alive. So I was pretty locked in, not gonna
Yeah, everyone who says that's correct. Like matchups are absolutely a thing in Madden. Like there are users that you'll be successful against and users that you like will just feel helpless against. Like that's absolutely the case. So yeah, that may be a bad matchup.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to numero 5. Too high. I mean, it's a vacuum. I get it, but I can't help but think of past. But this user, according to Connor, is the 5th best user this year, 9-4 record, 17th ranked offense, 13th ranked defense, and that's little Alex with Buffalo Bills. Your thoughts on him?
Schedule. His 4-game stretch of wins against Lucky, Cloud, Chase, and Ben is, in my opinion, the most impressive 4-game stretch that anyone's had all year long. Like when you just take, when you isolate like a 4-game stretch, that is ridiculously impressive from Young Alex's perspective, especially given, his past history in Madden 20. He's, I think, the only top 5 team to not really have any true like statistical strengths, like, passing offense, defense, rushing offense, defense. Like none of them are explosive necessarily as far as, again, the averages go, but they just seem to like win close games more often than not. Like they just grit out these victories against the users that you would think on their face are probably better than Young Alex, like the Bens and Chases of the world, but he just grits out wins, man. And, he's faced not like a Dolphins level schedule, but it has been of any user in the top 5. This is the hardest schedule that anyone's played, and it's not particularly close, honestly. So, you got to give him credit for that. And given the level of competition they faced all year, I thought the Young Alex was going to go 4-12, before the season started. And I have to give him his props, as much as I shit on him, like when we announced together and in the chat, he has like far surpassed my expectations, and he's, in my opinion, shown himself to be a true contender moving forward. He's done a really, really good job, and I'm impressed.
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned the tweet I did before about the toughest schedules. Now, he wasn't one of the top 3, but his 2 division mates were. Right. And the only reason he probably wasn't is because his 2 division mates are on his schedule twice, who have.
Yeah. He doesn't have to play himself, but yeah.
So he has played the same divisions, which has a lot to affect. So he has had a fairly tough schedule, and he's won the games that he's had to play, except for, I mean, his game against I forget the last one. That's the most recent one that stuck in my mind, where he had a chance to win and lost to somebody who's. Jesse maybe.
I'm sure he'll tell us in the chat.
But that one kind of is just like, all right, well, maybe he's just not ready yet. Maybe he's, good secondary. I think he leads the league in picks. But too high in my opinion. But it's in a vacuum, as you say. Allen only has 26 interceptions. That's a highlight. There's a decent amount of quarterbacks that have, 25 or less.
I mean, Baker has 20, I think. So, like,
he does have 20,
I wouldn't be saying that because I'm not the best passer in the world. So, yeah.
But Josh Allen does take a lot more deep. Well, I would think lots more deep shots. But anyways, let's go ahead and move to number 4. Alex, you were number 15. Big Alex, 15. Yeah. Well, we're almost to the last slide, which recaps.
Yeah. We'll check out later. Yeah.
It says CMass, you're blind. Okay. Well, I disagree. Number 4, my most overrated user in my opinion, is the Steelers. 10-3, 6th ranked offense, number 15 ranked defense. Your thoughts on Jesse?
Well, it's funny because I actually had like a pretty negative slant to this whole thing, so it's interesting that you call him the most overrated. I do think he's earned the spot. He beat Hero Austin, which we'll get to him. He'll be very happy with this placement. He's beaten Cody, he's beaten Phil, and Young Alex. I think his 10-3 record is legitimate. He's played a decent schedule. Like I think that is a legitimate like 10-3 right there. But let me be very clear about something. Not to pull an Obama. Let me be clear. If his passing efficiency doesn't get better, he does not have a prayer of like competing in the playoffs. Potentially making the Super Bowl. Like no shot whatsoever. He threw 9 interceptions against Taint. Ben Roethlisberger, this is 6 against me, and he threw 5. He beat Cody and he beat Ryan, but he threw 5 in those as well. So like, you can't just rely on your defense to like feast every single game. At some point you're going to have to generate like an efficient passing attack, and Chase generally against strong competition, and even against Taint for that matter, hasn't really shown the ability to do that. Especially when in the playoffs, you have to play elite competition multiple times in a row. He's not going to be able to do that. Now, to give him his credit, James Conner's had a very strong season. He is over 6.5 yards per carry. I do think, again, that's something that Jesse probably has to lean on a little bit more instead of, yeeting the ball into double coverage like I've seen him do quite a few times. And the defense has been highly disruptive. They force a lot of turnovers, even if like the overall stats, you see the 15th ranked defense, like the overall stats don't bear that out, but it is a disruptive defense in terms of just turnovers created. Just trust me on that. So solid run game, solid defense. He's going to have to be more efficient in terms of throwing the ball. And he also plays Cody, Justin, and myself to end the season. So like if things go south for him, if he like continues to put up these 5-6 interception games, we'll see how it goes. 10-6, I'm not sure gets you a wild card spot. So gonna have to win one of those games probably, and he's gonna have to, I think, put up more efficient passing performances in order to be a true competitor in this league.
I hate to quote Steele, but the eye test when I watch him, I'm not liking what I see. As far as a number 4 ranked user,
yeah,
and that's just my opinion. I mean, like he's had some impressive wins. Now, one of them, Cody kind of gave that one up. But you can't blame Jesse for that. But you've said it. I mean, he just throws too many picks. Now his defense is just another ranked 15th, but I think they might have the most forced turnovers besides the Bills.
Yeah, they're up there, and that was like real quick one thing I struggled with because like I beat Jesse by 35, so like I was really struggling to put. I had like subtle flex there, but it happened.
That should definitely bump him to 12.
But that was hurtful. But yeah, if so like I struggled putting him at 4, like despite that. But I think like you have to look at the totality of his season again. You have to look in a vacuum again.
You said it again.
Take it. Oh yeah. So I do like think he's earned the spot, but I also like for being the 4th best team in my opinion, I am very like pessimistic about his chances to compete in the playoffs compared to other users. I should say in the top like 7 or 8.
Yeah, I stand by my opinion. I think this is probably the most overrated one. But nothing against Jesse. Shout out Dan32, another one of Dan's burners, probably. But God. Dan32, what's up, man? Follow the channel, man. This is something rare we do for power rankings. It's usually a lot of red zone commentary games, stuff like that. Anyways, let's move on to number 3. Number 3, I love this guy's defense, mostly because he has Bears on it. But that's Mr. Cloud with a 9-4 record, 15th ranked offense, and that number 1 ranked defense as of this morning. Your thoughts on Mr. Cloud?
I mean, a team being 9-4 and at number 3 in my power rankings shows you like how much not polarization, how much parity there is in this league. Excuse me. It's truly impressive. I think there are like 10 teams that win the Super Bowl, and we'll get to that when we get to that, but it's just like a reflection of how balanced the league is right now. Again, first best defense, as you mentioned, despite the fact that 8 of his games currently have been against teams with winning records, and then 6 of them were against like true playoff contenders, in my opinion, including, some guys in his division. So that's really solid from Cloud's perspective. He's obviously figured out the defensive side of the ball in a way that very few other of us users have. He 2 of the critical wins he's gotten. He got a 3-point win against Ben way back in week 1. I think that was the 31-0 blown lead. I'm pretty sure. And then the 7-point win against King. Can't remember what week that was. I apologize, but he beat King by a touchdown. And those 2 wins may decide the division, depending on how the rest of these games break out. I do like Cloud is the best, I think, quarterback developer in the league. Honestly, in terms of some guys will get, their veterans, like Dan got Derek Carr in Madden 20 and is now using, Jameis Winston in Madden 21. Some guys will do that, but Cloud just takes like super low overall guys. It's Cole McDonald this year, 66 overall, and just puts up like numbers with them and puts up really efficient seasons with them. It's really impressive from Cloud. And I don't know how he does it, honestly, because I feel like every time I use like a below average quarterback, I feel like I can't do shit through the air. So like really impressive from Cloud. I think my only concern, it's relatively minor, but as far as like Super Bowl contenders go, you have to point these things out. He has a very all or nothing ground game. John Kelly, his starting halfback, got completely shut down and losses to Cook, weirdly enough, and then Hero Austin. Users have shown the ability to shut down his run game and make him one-dimensional before, and again, can't have that happen in the playoffs. So that would be a slight concern for the Cardinals. But yeah, very solid performance from Cloud so far. 9-4 and number 3 in my power rankings.
That defense, with the eye test, man, watching that defense play, that is a bad defense right there. They're just the way he plays, and those guys are just all over the ball, man. It's a problem.
They swarm, yeah, like few others in this league do. It's real impressive to watch.
Now he is susceptible to the run just like everybody else, but if he gets a lead on you with that offense, it's going to be tough for you to come back because that defense against the pass is tough. All right, let's go ahead and move on to numero dos. Little Alex says, I beat Clown. Congratulations.
Literally no one gives a shit, Alex, but thanks for your opinion.
Watch your profanity.
Number 2.
I do apologize.
That's okay. I don't know if you saw it earlier in the chat. Somebody said, I literally had to click a thing to say that I could be rated R in this chat.
That was King. Yeah, I saw that. That was funny.
All right, number 2. Highest I've ever seen him rated, but fairly deserving, but it's tough to say it. But
I get your trepidation. Like, I totally get it.
Tough to say it because, I mean, eventually he's going to lose and bitch. But here he is, confident Steele at 10-3, 13th ranked offense, number 6 ranked defense. Your thoughts on Steele in this vacuum?
In a vacuum, excuse me, thank you. Just to like point out a few of his impressive wins, excuse me. Again, I fall apart when it gets pretty late in these podcasts here. He beat Chase 58-21, just blew him all the way the hell out. Beat Alex 33-20 and beat Phil 44-10. He is dominating solid users so far. His only losses were against Dan, Morty, and Cloud, all of whom you could argue were on different levels, potential Super Bowl contenders. Maybe not Morty, that may have been overstating his place in the league right now, but Dan and Cloud definitely Super Bowl contenders, so not bad there as far as your 3 losses go. Despite going up against a lot of the best pass defenses in the league, Teddy Bridgewater's had a really impressive, really efficient season. I mean, I use the word efficient with a bunch of these quarterbacks. I have to use it again for Teddy Bridgewater. He's done a very solid job. And in my opinion, Steele's definitely deserving of this number 2 spot. Again, another game that I think will decide its division. He plays Dan week 17. I think they'll both be 12-3 heading into that game. So watch out for that one.
Yeah, I feel like he deserves the spot, but it just, like you said, you can tell my trepidation on this one, big word. But if he beats Dan the second time, because he obviously lost him once, and then that's a good loss to have. But if he beats Dan the second time around, I'll be probably more on board with the Steele making a playoff run. But I think he currently is could fight for the number 1 seed if this number 1 person falls apart. Or loses a couple games, but solid. His defense plays way better than the overall says, but he plays man defense with corners that are all super fast, so it makes it a lot easier. So his defense plays better than what they're ranked, so it helps a lot. Let's go ahead and move on to numero uno. I think people can kind of put it together who that is because it's a process of elimination. Number 1 is going to be our hero, the one that Phil doesn't care about. 10-3. I think the only user with a top 10 offense and top 10 defense, and that's Mr. Hero Austin. Your thoughts on why you put him at numero 1?
Man, like imagine heading into this first season if I told you that in week 13, 14, whatever, if I told you that Hero Austin would be at number 1 in my power rankings, like that is insane. You could put the top, I think, like 4 or 5 of these, or not 5. You can put the top 4 of these users, in my opinion, really in any order, and like you can't really argue with it. But I think when you look at again the totality of what everyone's accomplished again this season alone, statement wins, a lack of bad losses, balance on both sides of the ball, as you mentioned, the only user I believe to have a top 10 offense and defense, margin of victory, margin of defeat, etc. I do have Hero Austin as my number 1 team in the Bear League right now. His offensive efficiency is incredible. Definitely. Like it is the best in the league straight up. 72% completion percentage and only 1 interception a game by Daniel Jones, which again, by Madden standards, that's like historic. That's incredible. Saquon, of course, has been cooking for the entire season now. I think he's approaching this Madden specifically in the perfect way. Just don't screw up, don't throw dumb picks, don't commit turnovers, just get your athletes into space, rely on the run, rely on Saquon. He's doing an incredible job. I fear him so much because I play him. I'm about to play Sean tomorrow. Sorry for delaying Vance y'all, but I'm about to play Sean tomorrow, and then after that I play Hero Austin. I know. But I fear that game because he is looking like a true force right now within this league. Just to give like a shout out to his impressive wins real quick. He beat you, CMass. He's beaten Ben.
Oh, you think I'm impressive?
Lucky. Oh, you are.
18th ranked, you jerk. Okay, anyway. Go ahead.
Hey, listen, man, there's a lot of good users in here, man. I don't know. Like me, who I ranked 15th. But he beat you, Ben, King, Lucky, and Cloud. So like he's put up the he has the stature, he has the impressive wins to justify this ranking. I am not saying again with these rankings that I think he's the most likely user to win the Super Bowl of anyone. I don't know if that's true yet, but wouldn't be shocked necessarily because like he's looking real good right now, and he is the New York Giants are my number one team in my power rankings currently.
I mean, as far as efficiency is concerned, he's having one of those seasons that is just like shocking that he can be that efficient. And like you said, he's getting his athletes in space. It's a lot of RPOs, a lot of dump offs to Saquon if the guys aren't there. I remember playing him and just being so mad. I kept calling him check down Charlie, but it works. It works for him. Because I mean, he's got Evan Ingram, which kind of takes the top off up the seam, and Saquon underneath is just impossible to stop. And when he gets his ball in his hand, it's tough to stop him as far as tackling him. But he's just been so efficient. He hasn't made dumb mistakes. Now the games he's lost, he made those dumb mistakes. That game against Cody was one of the, like you mentioned, a lot of his good wins besides the one against me, which thank you. But besides the one against me, I didn't watch. The only one that I've seen him play a good user was above average user is Cody, and he didn't win that game. Now he had an opportunity to, but Cody made the plays to win, and that's where I feel like until I see him do that in playoff time, I'm not ready to crown him. But I mean, honestly, based on the 14 weeks that we've been in, he's definitely been. I can't really argue that he isn't top one consideration for sure. Let me see. I'm very late to the pod, but hello. Hey, Wozy. Well, here comes the recap for you. Here is that recap for you all, where you can see the rankings 1 through 32 on the left-hand side. And let me talk about the middle section here. Now we'll go to the bottom section first. And I'll show you right here, where it shows the top 10 users by conference. So you've actually ranked 6 of the top 10 in the NFC, 4 of the top 10 from the AFC. So according to that, there's always the NFC versus AFC argument. The NFC is a little more top heavy in your mind, or at least has the top 6 best users in that. Any sort of comments on that?
Well, you know what I think it is I honestly think the AFC is so like we're just cannibalizing each other. Like, everyone's just like struggling to, get like a truly elite record in the AFC. There are so many users still that are in playoff contention, so many users that have between, 7 and 9 wins, for example, that I think that it actually makes sense that like the cream of the NFC rose to the top, that the more elite users within the NFC, find themselves in the top 10. And then a lot of guys in the AFC find themselves outside of the top 10. It doesn't necessarily surprise me, even though I would still argue there are probably more playoff contenders in the AFC than there are in the NFC. Like based on just top 10, based on again in a vacuum, I could pretty easily justify that because again, the NFC has maybe like a more established top class right now than the AFC, which is like kind of a mess.
I definitely agree with that. And then also the kind of the divisions kind of back up what you just said. So the divisional rankings are just, I just added the rankings up, and whoever had the lowest number would be number 1. And according to that process, you think the NFC West is the best decision in this vacuum that you so eloquently call. And then the NFC North and West, 2 and 3, followed by the NFC South, East, South, NFC East, and then just really shitting on my NFC North. By a long shot, they were considered the worst. Thanks a lot. But your thoughts on that, the division rankings based on your opinion of the individual rankings, and is that kind of like, do you agree with how it's sitting?
Well, I'd have to imagine that Harold Austin dragged the NFC East out of last place would be my guess. But yeah, I mean, just like looking at it, my immediate reactions, I would agree that probably the NFC West right now is at least the deepest division in terms of, you've got Cloud, Ben and King, who are all honestly looking like they could potentially be Super Bowl contenders moving forward, as well as Lucky, who, he's struggled recently. I have him at the 19th spot currently, but definitely not a bad user, definitely a user that can beat anyone any given Sunday. So they definitely run 4 deep as a division, and so I can pretty easily justify that. As far as the AFC North goes, I apologize. Wait, hold on.
Holding.
Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, as far as the AFC North goes, you can definitely argue that, maybe I overrated Cody a little bit. Maybe I overrated myself a little bit. Maybe I'm just like
Jesse.
Not wow. Yeah, maybe I overrated Jesse. It could possibly be that, me having played some of those users twice and, all of them at least once, so that maybe I'm bumping them up a little bit just because of the eye test, just because,
Sure.
again, they're in my division. I play them. So there may be a little bit of bias in that regard, but I can, again, justify it just on the basis of, Cody and Jesse have been very solid. Again, you think Jesse's overrated. I'm not necessarily going to argue that, but he is my number 4 currently, and Cody's my number 7. So that bumps it up. Just like general. So I know you like alluded to some placements that you disagree with right now. Like, what is the one placement that I made that you most like? You think I was on crack when you put them there?
Well, 18 Bears, but no, that's fair.
Well, I mean, they're top one in our hearts for sure.
For sure. Play by rankings, they're numero 1. But anyways, what's you saying? Which one's the one I hate the most? Whether it's too high or too low? Or
yeah, like which one did you just like disagree with completely? Like, I know you alluded to Jesse. I know you alluded to Cam. Let's see.
There's a lot. There's a lot that I disagree with. I wouldn't say there's one that I just absolutely loathe, and I'm just like, probably the one that I think is. But the problem is that I always think outside this vacuum. You're in the vacuums hard. But for me,
I stay in the vacuum like it's bad.
You live in that vacuum. Yeah, I agree. Bears should be lower. Thanks, Justin. Didn't I beat you, Justin? Anyways, but so did Gamble and so did other people. But I would say that the one that I probably think should be lower by probably the most is the Bills. I think that little Alex should be lower. I think a lot of his success has to do with his defensive backfield, which I think is the least used part of a defense. I feel like it just has a lot to do with Trey White, a lot to do with Micah Hyde, a lot to do with Moby Elefano. He's just got a lot of athletes back there that are making plays for him. Levi Wallace, who for whatever reason I think has like 11 picks or something crazy. So in my opinion, I think it has a lot to do with that. I don't think he's done anything like amazing to earn that spot. And I think it's just too soon to have him in the top 5. But I understand your thought process. But him and Steelers, so that I've mentioned before, are probably the ones that I'm just like, no, I wouldn't have them that high. Rams I probably wouldn't have that high. Chargers would be higher. Jags too high. Broncos should be higher. Colts way too high. Chiefs maybe a little bit higher, but he deserves where he's at. And then the rest are pretty solid. Vikings would be higher.
I'll be honest. A lot of my Colts placement was just off the strength of that Bengals result. Like that was maybe the one placement more than any other where I let one result cloud where I put them. So I can, the more I think about it, I can.
Have you played Justin Wright and lost, right?
Yep. Jonathan Taylor ran all the hell over.
Yeah, so that's fair that he's below. I was going to say maybe you put you above him, but no, if that's the case, then no, it's fine where it's at. I'd say Alex is definitely better than Colts. I'd say Morty is definitely better than Colts. But then again, it's a vacuum. So you're doing a lot about records and stuff like that. But he also has the second easiest schedule in the league, behind the Jaguars. Okay, let's go. Tyrell says Rams is far too high. Have only won games they are supposed to. Lost every game against a good opponent, which sucks because he beat me, and that means I'm not good. Let me see.
Damn, dude, that's tough.
Ouch. Let's take out this schedule real quick. All right, beat Taint, beat Ryan, lost to little Alex, lost to Hero Austin, beat Cook barely. Lost to the 49ers, barely beat me by 3 points. Beat Nico by a touchdown. Beat Lucky. Beat Wozy. Lost to Ben. Lost to Cloud. Destroyed Austin. I mean, that's probably the only one that was a good user that he won.
That's very fair. I mean, looking at the people that are directly behind him, I mean, you could definitely argue that, maybe you could put the Chargers over him, but I don't know, the Patriots have just been so inconsistent.
And the fact that he beat him, that you can't really put him over him.
Right. Yeah. So it's maybe you drop him by one spot, you drop the Rams by one spot, but I don't know. I feel good with where I'm at. I do agree with what you said about the Colts though. If I could do that over again, I'd probably. That's
one of the weird things is that it's like Rams, that's too high at number 9, but then you look at it, like you just said, it's just I don't really think there's that many people I'd put ahead of him.
Yeah, you have to if you're gonna say someone's way too high, you then have to say who you would put ahead of them, and that's where it gets tough because then you're comparing.
Chargers, I would definitely. Well, then again, if they played each other, I feel like the matchup is not great for the Chargers. But
Yeah, no, I mean, again, there are so many ways like you can look at how to do these rankings. Like,
the best way to look at it is
in a vacuum.
in a vacuum. All right. Clonner, your closing thoughts.
Well, my closing thoughts are this is maybe the most excited I've been, not just because of my own like relative success compared to like, past cycles for sure, but this is the most excited I am to see just like how a playoff race and then how the playoffs themselves break out in a really long time. I don't think there have ever been so many users in one season that I think have like a non-zero shot of winning the Super Bowl. There's no one dominant user right now. I think the fact that, again, I love them both, but the fact that Hero, Austin, and Steel are 1 and 2 in my power rankings right now kind of indicates that. Like, there's no, like, one guy who is the clear favorite like there was with, Dan in these last few seasons of Madden 20. So
sure.
I am very, very excited to see how this breaks out. I hope I'm a part of it, but even if I'm not, you'll hear my voice. You'll hear CMass's voice plenty on the Better League Network. And
what are you trying to say?
Hey, listen. You'll hear me announcing your games.
That's it. That's gotta be it. The crazy thing, it was kind of bounces off what you just said. Number 1 through 21 all have an opportunity to make the playoffs. They're all still in it.
Dude. Like it's crazy, like how bounced this whole thing is.
A clear favorite's Nick. Yeah, Nick is the clear favorite for the top overall pick for sure. And by Nick, I mean whoever takes over for the Falcons. So I guess P or whatever his name is. If he's even next, there's a little controversy on that one, but
apparently we're gonna pass him every time. So
I've been in a lot of leagues over the years, and to have at week 14 still 21 teams that have a shot at the playoffs is pretty crazy. Crazy. Although I feel like maybe in the top 21, the Seahawks and the Raiders don't really have a shot, but everybody else really does. It'd take a lot, but. Bucks don't, they're not 21. But yeah, I mean, they all have an opportunity. They have a shot. They're not out of contention. So definitely, this is, the hardest, like you said, the hardest power rankings you had to put together for sure. I agree with you. Even though I didn't do it. All right. So thank you all so much for watching. Big shout outs to, let's go back. Tank get the sub. Ben subscribing. Morty gifting a sub. 187 Gaming TV with the follow, and then Morty again with a $20 donation. Talking about the content is delicious. I'm gonna. Whoa.
Someone just said some wildness in the chat. Oh my goodness. Jeez. I mean, this is a Madden stream, sir. I don't know what you think this is, but
I'm gonna. In the future, I'm probably gonna switch over to a follower only chat. Although it's not hard to just click the follow button, but at least we'll get the follow.
Still,
right?
If it gives us more followers, then yeah, sure.
Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I mean, I've seen Austin in the chat, Justin in the chat, Woozy in the chat, Little Alex in the chat, Big Alex in the chat, Cam, Ben, Taint. Obviously, you've seen Morty if I haven't already said so already. I've pretty much seen everybody in the chat so far. Is there anybody I'm missing? I don't think so. But thank you all so much for watching. Next stream, at least next guaranteed stream will be Wednesday 9 Eastern Red Zone. There may be a commentating. I don't think so because Connor's the only game going on tomorrow, so that one probably won't be commentated. Vance will be after your game more than likely, which is at 7 Eastern.
Yeah, it might also be earlier. Like I'm trying to figure it out.
It better fucking be.
Listen, I'm not Mike. I don't want to hear it. This is the first time this has happened. So
yeah, although Mike was calling out for, he's just like, what the hell? That was Def Austin's burner, says Justin. Maybe. All right, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your night. Big shout out to Connor for putting this together. I know it took a decent amount of time to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for hosting this.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Appreciate y'all again, and hope you all have a fantastic rest of your night. CMass and Humble Host.